Krai is the leader of the strongest party in the world, but the only problem is that he's a totally useless loser who just stumbles through situations because of sheer coincidence and a lot of luck. A boy cheerily tells his group of friends that they'll aim to become the best heroes in the world and will go to the imperial capital, Zabrudia. Treasure hunters are considered stars in the imperial capital. They travel around the world to various ruins, the so-called treasure vaults, and collect the hidden riches inside. The clan First Steps is regarded as very capable in the capital and is holding interviews for potential new members at a pub. There's a limit to how far you can go as a solo hunter, so it's vital to get into a good party and become stronger alongside your comrades. Unfortunately, a guy admits he failed to do that. As he's standing in line, a girl starts talking to him and says he looks more approachable. She introduces herself as Ruta Runebeck and says she was recently promoted to level 3. The guy introduces himself as Krai Andrey but doesn't shake her hand, so she reveals that she couldn't handle a treasure vault called the White Wolf's Den, and was thinking she could join some sort of party, but a guy near them cockily tells her this place isn't for amateur hunters like her. He advises that she should go home before getting hurt, so she asks if he wants to have a duel and takes out her blades. However, an official tells them to stand down unless they want to lose any chance of joining the clan. Inside the pub, Krai remarks that with talent can instantly make a name for themselves and climb the ranks, while those without cling to the few chances they can get. Ruta asks about a party in front of them, so Krai says it's Arc Brave, the strongest party here, who managed to complete a level 7 treasure vault with just 6 members. He adds that their leader is Arc Rodden, and if he accepts you, your success as a hunter is basically guaranteed, although as far as he knows, they've never accepted a new member through one of these events. She asks about a small table with an empty table, so the guy from before, Greg Zangief, says it looks like he has no choice but to tell her, "Oh bro." That's the table of the party that originally founded First Steps, the Grievers. Krai remarks that the Grievers is the alias of a party of youngsters that came to this capital a few years ago. They made a name for themselves as one of the top parties in the capital. Their full name is Grieving Souls, and it's the party of his childhood friends. Greg reveals that there's a rumor that the Grievers are looking to accept new hunters into their party for the first time in years. A hunter suddenly declares that he came all the way here because he heard the best would show up. He'll be one of the strongest hunters one day. He's already made it to level 4, and here he was, thinking of allowing the capital's strongest party to recruit him. A girl, Tino, suddenly asks the guy what his problem is, so an official tries to stop her, but she says she'll beat the guy out of here and declares that she's the one who deserves to be in Grieving Souls. The other hunters clear the area in the middle so that Tino and the guy can duel, and they face off against each other. Krai tells Ruta they should go outside since they're dead if they get mixed up in this, but as they're slowly escaping, Tino suddenly appears in front of him and asks what he's doing here, referring to him as Master. Arc Brave tells Krai he's late and says that without him, the clan master and leader of Grieving Souls, they can't get anything started, which shocks everyone. In the golden age of treasure hunters, Krai Andrey stands out amongst all others. He's the leader of the strongest party he founded with his childhood friends, and also the master of the strongest clan. It happened several years ago. They had arrived at the capital and were finishing treasure vaults suited for beginners at record speed. Krai and his friends shared the dream of becoming hunters, but the amount of talent they had was not equal compared to the monstrous potential the other 5 possessed. Krai was exceedingly ordinary, so if he had stayed with them, he'd only be getting their way sooner or later, though they'd be kind enough not to say anything against him, which is why he had to make that decision for himself. One day, Krai told his party that he knew all of them would go on to become incredible hunters, so he hoped they would understand. However, his friends suddenly said he's realized they don't have a party leader, so he should do it. The others happily agreed since he's great at giving speeches, shocking Krai, who remarked that that's how everything began and also ended. For years now, he's been the leader of this party of his gifted childhood friends. Ruta says she can't believe Krai is the clan master of First Steps, and Arc Brave tells Krai being late because he overslept is a joke only he would make. Arc thinks Krai was just observing the hunters from up close, so Krai remarks that hunters basically never listen to anything you say. Tino tells Krai they should strike Arc's name from the clan roster since he's too insulting. Krai remarks that Tino is an apprentice to his childhood friend, Liz. Brave asks if he's found any members, so Krai says they have enough right now and asks if he'd take someone in if he said they had potential. Arc confirms that he would since he trusts him. Tino blushingly tells Krai being chosen is an honor, but she's already set her heart on joining him, so joining Arc's party isn't possible for her. Krai asks the guy who was screaming before if he's affiliated with any party and asks for his name. The guy introduces himself as Gilbert Bush. Krai agrees to recommend him on one condition and asks what he thinks is the most important thing for a hunter. Krai says it's to not lose. If he lacks strength, he'll eventually put his party into danger, so he needs him to show him his ability to not lose, and reveals that he hasn't lost a single time since he became a hunter, shocking everyone. He takes off his ring and says he'll recommend whoever manages to get it to Arc Brave. As the hunters start fighting with each other, Krai decides to leave for now. He says goodbye to Brave and leaves. Later, First Step's Vice Clan Master, Eva Renfield, tells Krai there seem to have been no injuries, but the Explorers Association wants a word with him. Krai mutters that if he doesn't go, branch manager Gark will come see him instead, but he doesn't want to go with an escort, and his disguise relic was broken too. At the Explorer Association's office, Krai desperately apologizes to Gark and says what he did wasn't on purpose. A woman gives Krai a book and says even if nobody was hurt, First Steps needs to set an example for the other clans. Krai realizes he's being given a chore and sits down on the couch. He says he's not saying he won't accept this, but their misstep this time wasn't bad, so he decides to pick an easy one and pass it on to Ark. He decides to choose one that looks easy, but after he's left, Gark is surprised that Krai chose the most dangerous-looking mission. Krai is surprised to learn that Ark has been summoned by nobles and will be gone for a while. Tino reveals that she was the one who got the ring in the end, since she didn't want anyone else to have it. Krai asks if she's free right now, so she happily confirms that she is. However, she instantly disappears when Krai mentions that he got a quest from the Explorers Association. Krai sighs and uses the hounding chain to bind Tino, so she narrowly ever thought he would do something this terrible. She annoyingly asks why the hell anyone ever take this on when there's no compensation. She argues there's no way she can rescue 5 people all alone and asks if he can come along with her, but Krai partners her up with Gilbert, Ryuta, and Greg. Years ago, when Krai's party was standing in front of the Explorers Association, Krai repeated that he's just going to drag them down, but his friends annoyingly said he's overthinking it, and Luke went in. Inside, he asked the hunters which one here is the best swordsman, and declared that he's the greatest swordsman in the world. However, Liz entered behind him and announced that she's the greatest thief in the world before saying they're here today to register as treasure hunters. Krai asks the receptionist if she gets weirdos like them, so she says they do, but very rarely, and tells him to register his party's name and crest. He decides to go with Grieving Souls to make them regret making him their leader, so Luke says they run the risk of people thinking they're an antisocial party if they name themselves that. Krai says he won't get motivated if they don't use this name, so it looks like he has no choice but to step down, but they suddenly all agree. Presently, Greg asks Krai if he's Thousand Tricks, so Krai remarks that hunters who achieve a certain prestige are given special names and become revered like celebrities. Gilbert says there's no way Krai is Thousand Tricks, the strongest in the capital, when he looks like he never trains. Tino tells Gilbert he's wasting 90% of his life if he can't recognize Krai's strength. Krai figures that they've heard the rough details and asks Ryuta, Gilbert, and Greg if they'll help Tino out with this job. However, Gilbert annoyingly says he won't take a job from him and asks Greg how Theis can be the leader of the strongest party everyone talks about. In that case, Krai says he'll give up on Gilbert and tells Tino to take someone else from the clan if she needs help. As Krai is walking away, Gilbert challenges him and declares that he's not going to listen to anyone weaker than him, so Krai says he won't be fighting him but the party leader, Tino. As the battle is about to begin, Gilbert declares that he won't be using his sword, so Tino says she'll go have ice cream with Krai once she's won. She easily knocks Gilbert down and tells him not to dare to cry again if he doesn't want more pain. Ryuta and Greg watch in shock and realize this is how strong the steps are. As Greg is knocked down, Tino tells him to use his sword, but he says he won't, so she calls his pride foolish and says it's all for nothing if he dies. Krai asks Gilbert if he left his party because the difference between his and their power was too great, and Gilbert is shocked by how he knew. Krai says the same thing happened at their party, but no one was abandoned. He sets flame to the sword and tells Gilbert to use it well since it's a simple but good sword. Gilbert is stunned to see that he was able to handle it with such ease without even holding it. Later, Krai praises Gilbert's sword in front of Eva and wonders if he'd sell it to him, but Eva says he has too many relics already, so he hurriedly says, although some relics may look similar, they all tick a bit differently. Eva tells him to rein in a little since he's even taken a loan. Later, as Krai is getting his relic changed, a man tells him a phantom has appeared near the White Wolf's den, and the Knights of the Third Order are now recruiting for an extermination party. Krai is sure it's fine, but the men start talking about how much more dangerous the den has recently become, and Krai notices that the rescue quest is for a team of level 5 hunters. The men can't believe he sent Tino with an ad hoc group and wonder if these are the 1,000 trials that made the Grievers the top party. So Krai hurriedly says he's remembered some urgent business and leaves. On the way, Ruta asks if Krai knew this was going to be a difficult mission. Tino confirms this and says the group's composition isn't random either. It's according to Krai's plan. They realize everything was premeditated, and Tino says no matter what happens, it's all according to Krai's calculations. He'd never arbitrarily send them on an impossible mission. In town, Krai worryingly remarks that he arbitrarily assigned that job to Tino and really hopes that they come back if it's too hard, but he knows Tino's under the influence of some bad members and won't give up easily. Even if he wanted to call for backup, no one would move out at this hour, so he decides to get going so that he can stop them before they reach the treasure vault and get their butts kicked. He enters his treasury and loads up a lot of relics into a sack. As he leaves, Eva asks if he's still worried about the party, even though this was all fully calculated. So Krai hurriedly declines and flies off using a defective relic. A week after the Grieving Souls began operating, Luke says he can't believe his Testament blade would break just like that, and they discuss running into a Cyclops in the vault. A drunk hunter doesn't believe they'd run into a Cyclops and actually managed to get away, but Liz shows him the bag with the Cyclops head, revealing that they actually killed it. Presently, the party manages to kill the Phantom they were fighting, and Ruta suggests that they retreat for now since these conditions are completely different from what was outlined, and Gilbert's sword isn't charged either, but Tino says they must be confused. They didn't come here to collect corpses. The people in the den are still alive, and the sword being depleted must mean Krai doesn't want them to rely on relics. They come across a horde of monsters, so Tino says she and Ruta will bait the monsters from the front, allowing Gilbert and Greg to assault the back line from behind. As they take the enemies down, Tino remarks that the monsters are really strong. The thing they have going for them is their teamwork. She smilingly acknowledges that every single thing was calculated by Krai. As he's fighting, Gilbert understands why his party, who is much weaker than him, was so frustrated. He never understood how good fighting side by side with a team felt. After they've taken the monsters down, Tino senses a boss near them. Greg asks if they should run, but she says they've managed to get this far without a scratch. Tino tells Greg a big guy like him shouldn't be so scared. Caution is good, but you have to throw it to the wind sometimes. Greg admits she's right and remarks that before, he would just run away whenever he come across an overwhelmingly powerful monster. As Krai is flying, he remarks that he can't see Tino anywhere in the woods and wonders if that means he's too late. He manages to get into the den and frustratingly wonders what the hell this relic's creator was thinking since it just goes too damn fast. Meanwhile, the party is fighting the wolf boss and initially get overwhelmed by it, but they manage to take it down by working fight together. They think they've won and decide to go get the party that's stuck here, but 4 more wolf bosses unexpectedly appear in front of them, so Tino inwardly tells Krai this second helping is just too much. She tells the party they'll run into the narrow passage near them, since they won't be able to swing their clubs in there. However, one of the wolves blocks it, so Gilbert and Greg decide to act as bait and tell Ruta and Tino to do whatever they can to escape since it's better than them all dying. Tino inwardly asks Krai if this is really the only thing they can do and suddenly realizes something. She tells the party they'll attack the eyes and asks them to back her up. They manage to attack the eyes of the wolf near them, but Gilbert rushes in and gets tossed into the wall. He apologizes, but Tino says it's her fault and realizes this must be it. However, Krai suddenly crashes in, taking the wolf down. The other wolves react in fear and their attacks don't affect Krai because he's wearing a relic. He uses a huge magical attack, shocking the party members, but it doesn't do anything to the wolves, so he inwardly admits the rings don't do much. He suddenly unleashes smoke in the cave and tells them all to run. Ruta realizes Krai is running slower on purpose so that they can protect Tino hearing, which Tino remarks that an act of casual kindness like that makes her remember their first meeting. A young Tino was cornered by some monsters in an alley when the Grieving Souls suddenly saved her. Presently, Krai heals Tino's leg with a relic and praises her for doing so well. He says they should leave for now since that's the best course of action, but as they start walking, he realizes he has no idea where he's going. Luke asks Krai if all these relics are his, and also Krai says he's got a thing for them and just buys them whenever he can. Liz asks if he's going to pick some out for her, so he agrees, and Luke cheerily says he's going to pick some out for them too. They mess about with some of the relics, but they're all dangerous. Afterwards, these relics were turned into training gear for Luke and Liz. Presently, Krai remarks that no matter where you walk in the den, everything looks the same, so you never know where you are. He realizes Tino isn't even looking at him and wonders if she hates him. Gilbert apologizes if this is all according to plan but asks where they're going. Tino tells him they've been purposefully moving away from the exit this whole time and says she has a rough idea of the layout of this den since she checked a map before they left. If they want to return, they've got to go back to the boss chamber. Ruta asks if they can at least know where they're headed, so Krai wonders why everyone's so reliant on him. Krai suddenly turns a corner and the party is shocked to realize Krai took them to the injured party members they were supposed to rescue, and Krai is surprised too, but he decides to not show it. They heal the injured party, but they're all hungry, so Krai gives them all chocolates, leaving Tino in awe. Gilbert asks the party how they got defeated since the wolves were strong, but there's no way they could overpower a level 5. The leader of the party reveals that they were defeated by a small phantom whose face was covered by a skull. He says they're confident in their power, but they stood no chance against the phantom, and he might even be as strong as 1,000 swords. Krai remarks that 1,000 swords Aka Luke can cut down any enemy with a single wooden sword, and says saying it's on his level is a bit much. In that case, Krai says their only choice is to get out of here before they encounter the phantom, but they'll follow Tino since she's the leader. Tino says she's garbage compared to him, but he assures her he'll be there to help if she needs it. They get up and hear the monsters getting closer, so Krai remarks that he's got 5 safety relics left, which means he'll actually die the 6th time. It's crazy that he dies so quickly. Tino senses that something tremendous is coming their way, so Krai tells her to stand back and remarks that he can get a surprise attack in using a relic even though he'll die once. However, as the masked phantom starts approaching them, another woman appears behind and Krai realizes that that's just Liz. She approaches him and takes off her mask, but after talking to Krai a bit, she asks Tino why she couldn't take down some garbage enemies and questions if she made any mistakes in her training, so Tino hurriedly apologizes. However, Krai assures her that Tino did a really good job today and tells Liz he's proud of her since she's gotten much better at holding back. Liz easily takes down the large wolf and then kills the phantom in one hit, showing Tino how it's done. Tino starts crying in shame, so Krai remarks that he feels bad for her. He remarks that Liz is faster than anyone in the world, and her godly speed won't even leave a shadow, which is why she's known as Stifled Shadow. In the past, Krai forgot to make eye holes in the masks of the Grieving Souls members, but they realized if they could move normally while wearing these masks, they'd be even stronger. A year ago, Citri Smart from the Grieving Souls had given Krai a vial of slime and asked him to hold on to it. She was given the name the Prodigy, and she sometimes shows Krai her inventions. Citri asks Krai to not release it since it might destroy the capital. Presently, Krai wonders where the slime is since the vial was empty when he opened it in the cave. It was always in his treasury before then. The only conclusion he can come to is that it was always empty and decides to not think about it anymore. Krai remarks that he couldn't sleep at all because he was thinking of the slime. He runs into Eva, who says the association wants to hear a detailed report on the White Wolf's den. He tells her to ask Tino since she was the leader, but she reveals that Tino's training with Liz right now. Krai asks if there's been any movement in the capital, so she decides to look into it, but he hurriedly says he's probably just worrying over nothing and tells her to take it easy. He goes to take a look at Tino, so Eva remarks that he predicts everything perfectly. The first time could have been a coincidence, but she's certain now. So she wonders what on earth is going on in the capital. In front of the training hall, Krai runs into Sven Anger, leader of Obsidian Cross, who asks him to stop Stifled Shadow since they can't use the hall because of her. Krai is unsure, so Sven says Tino's gonna die if no one stops Liz. Inside, Krai sees Tino lying on the ground as Liz asks why she's not getting up and says she'd not kill her if she doesn't get up. However, just before she can bring her leg down on Tino, Krai stops her. Liz says they know Tino's got talent but wonders how she's not so much stronger at this age. Krai says they should call it a day, so she cheerily agrees, but Tino weakly grabs Liz's leg and says she can still move. Krai leaves and apologetically tells the waiting hunters there's no talking to Liz once she gets like that, so they agree since Tino getting stronger would be helpful to them all. Sven tells Krai that multiple phantoms have suddenly appeared, and Krai wonders if that's why Gark wanted to see him, since there's something off about the White Wolf's den too. He wants to leave everything to Ark, so he decides to stall for time until he returns. Krai suggests to Sven that he should take an order from the association since he can't train here. When he leaves, a new member of Obsidian Cross asks Sven why Krai stays behind and makes everyone else do the work, so Sven says he might not understand it since he's new, but Krai is also a monster just like the other members of the Grieving Souls, and he's the one who keeps the clan going. Meanwhile, Gark decides to visit Krai since he's sure he knows what's behind all these recent anomalies. The leader of the evil cult orders the cult members to never underestimate Thousand Tricks since he's already hinted he knows about their existence. The leader reveals that if his experiment progresses and proves his theory, they should be able to create treasure vaults at will. The other members ask why Sophia is on vacation right now, when she's the one in charge of defense, so the leader tells them to not get worked up since he's the one who granted her permission and has contacted Sophia with the sounding stone. Krai hurriedly wakes up from a nightmare and wonders if Citri's slime really is that dangerous. He's surprised to find Liz sleeping beside him and remembers that she did have a habit of sneaking into his bed at night. Liz asks Krai if he's free today since she's given Tino a break, so he agrees. Later, when Gark arrives, Liz annoyingly tells him they're way too dependent on Krai and tells him to learn to solve things on his own. Liz and Gark get ready to fight each other, so Krai suggests that he and Kana should have some tea upstairs. She asks if he noticed anything unusual in the White Wolf's den, but he says he's more concerned with the other issue and realizes he let it slip. She asks what he's talking about, so he apologetically says he can't tell it to her right now, since he doesn't know who's got ears listening where. He remarks that there's no way he can just say he's released a dangerous slime and tells Kana he'll have their clan help out as much as they can. Meanwhile, as Liz and Gark are fighting, she says she'll let him go for old time's sake, so he angrily says she needs to be taught a lesson and powers up. Krai remarks that Gark used to be a first-rate level 7 hunter, and the people who knew him from them still call him War Demon because of how cheesy it sounds. Krai stops them before they can bring the whole building down, and later, Eva is shocked when she sees the state they've left it in. As Krai and Liz are hanging out, she notices that something's wrong and inquires about it, so Krai asks what she'd do if, hypothetically, the entire city of Zabrudia got destroyed. She suggests that they could run away together, hearing which Krai smilingly remarks that that's how Liz is. She suddenly wrangles a guy and says he was staring at them, so Krai hurriedly suggests that they talk it out. The guy runs away when Liz lets him go, seeing which Liz realizes he was allowing the guy to do that and praises his acting. Later, the man wonders what just happened and why Thousand Tricks let him get away even though he was tailing them. Gark annoyingly says Krai has the same excuses every time and asks Sven if he said he came here to obtain a quest. He asks if they can investigate the Wet Wolf's den for him, and later, at the den, Sven smilingly mutters that they're dancing in the palm of Krai's hand again. As Krai and Liz are walking in an alleyway, Krai remarks that this is the least safe neighborhood in the capital. Liz asks if he has any business to take care of here, so Krai says, according to Eva's information, one person after another has gone missing in this area, and there's a new ice cream shop around here too. He suggests that they check it out, so Liz happily agrees. Meanwhile, the man from before is watching them through his binoculars, and he can't believe Thousand Tricks managed to find him. He realizes this was why Krai let him go and questions how they knew that this ice cream shop is one of their research facilities. He hurriedly decides to close for the day, but Sophia suddenly arrives. They hurriedly close the shop, and Liz is about to knock the shutter down, but Krai suggests that they should leave for the day. Later, Krai asks Liz when Citri is coming back, since he needs someone who has information on magical organisms, so Liz believes she'll take a while. Eva enters and informs Krai that she's found hunters who can aid them in the investigation of the White Wolf's den, and Sven's party has already gone in first. Meanwhile, the leader of the cult can't believe Thousand Tricks found their facility in the slums so easily, so the members question if his intelligence network is better than theirs. They're not sure of what they should do against Thousand Tricks, so Sophia suggests that they should fight. She acknowledges that the Grieving souls are extremely strong hunters, but this is the perfect opportunity to see how effective the defense system they've built is. The leader agrees that it's impossible for them to escape completely unscathed now and tells Sophia to do whatever she wants. Later, Krai is surprised to see a lot of hunters in the hall, so Eva says they're for the investigation of the White Wolf den. Krai doesn't think it's that hard and says half of them should be enough, but the hunters hurriedly ask him to have mercy, so they think it's much harder because Krai originally wanted to send Arc Brave. Liz says this is exactly why these guys are still so weak and tells Krai she'll take this job with Liz, but Krai declines. Eva asks Krai if he'll lead the hunters into the vault, so Krai reluctantly agrees, but says he has some matters to take care of, so he'll join them later. Before the hunters leave, they ask Krai if there's anything they should look out for, so Krai tells them to be careful of a slime-like thing. The cult, Akashic Tower, can't believe so many hunters have been sent to take them down, so Sophia says they can still work together to take them down. Stifled Shadow can be taken care of with provisions against her physical attacks, and Thousand Tricks can't unleash his full power without the entire party since he's the brains. Citri Smart is the only issue, but she's made sure their defense system can't be taken down by legitimate ways. Obsidian Cross wonders if it was overkill for them to dispatch here, but Sven suddenly learns something through a sounding stone and signals to the other party in the den that they should get out. Outside, the party leader annoyingly asks Sven if he really believes the words of a man who's lazing about in the city more than the evidence here. Sven agrees and recounts how one day, when they were going cherry blossom viewing, Krai suggested that they should take their weapons with them, and a vault opened right in front of them. He tells the leader that Krai can see the future, so information from him is invaluable. Meanwhile, as Liz is asking Krai when they'll go join the other parties, Citri returns and tells Krai there's a powerful enemy and they need to crush them before they gain any more power. When they were kids, Citri told Krai she wanted to fulfill a role their party didn't have since her body isn't particularly strong, so Krai suggested that she could become an alchemist. Presently, Krai tells Citri the slimes escaped, so she guesses where it must have gone and tells him to leave it to her. She adds that there's another matter and tells Krai the entire investigation team will likely be wiped out if they don't do something about the White Wolf's den. Meanwhile, the other hunters reach the wolf's den, and they're surprised to meet an alchemist named Talia, who shows them a potion Citri created that kills slimes. They spend the entire day investigating it but aren't able to find anything. At night, Sven wonders if Krai was wrong, so the other party leader angrily says he can't believe they listened to the words of a random guy from the capital, and Hapital heads into the forest where he's going to be instantly proven wrong. However, he suddenly hears something nearby and goes to check. He's shocked to see a pair of cult members standing in front of a chained-up wolf monster. He confronts them and starts beating them up, but one of the members suddenly injects some fluid into the wolf, transforming it into a monster of slime. Sven and the others hear the noise and hurriedly rush to check. The leader, Jean, warily appears in front of them with his arm damaged and hurriedly tells them Thousand Tricks was telling the truth. They try fighting the slime monster, but both physical and magical attacks are ineffective against it. Sven tells everyone to focus on evading it and orders his party to try and box the monster, and since it's slow, he hurriedly takes the potion from Talia and attacks the monster with it, but it's still not defeated. Citri suddenly appears, revealing that Krai had sent her, and explains that the monster is trying to replenish its melted body by absorbing additional mana material. She throws a vial containing anti-mana metal towards the monster, and Sven destroys it with an arrow, instantly killing the monster. Later, she tells Sven and the others about Akashic Tower and believes they're conducting research on how to control vaults at will. She believes they can defeat them and says it shouldn't be too difficult with this many hunters. Meanwhile, Liz tells Krai Citri might die if something happens there and insists that they join them, but Krai smilingly declines. The Akashic Tower members discuss how Sophia told them to send the phantoms one by one and believe that's just begging to get them killed, so a guy orders them to call her here immediately and reminds them that they're up against Thousand Tricks here. He declares that they'll let all the phantoms lose in one go and swiftly crush the hunters, remarking that he'll show her how to do battle. Citri asks the bound Akashic Tower members where their leader, Noctis Cochlear, is, but they don't say anything, so she decides to use a potion to loosen their tongue. However, the officials argue that she can't do this and remind her that they're not criminals, so Citri mutters that it seems they've run out of time. Another gigantic slime monster starts walking towards them, so Citri orders the people with shields to get in the front line. However, after seeing them fight it a bit, Citri says hunters who use melee attacks don't stand a chance against the monster. She explains that if they concentrate all their magical attacks on one spot and hit it multiple times, they could get through, but that would require an extremely high level of skill. Another monster suddenly appears, and Gark says it'll be too late even if they ask for more hunters, so Citri says she never thought people this stupid would be in the Akashic Tower. She tells the mages to stop attacking and get back as the monsters unexpectedly start fighting each other. More wolf monsters appear and start fighting them, so it's just a 2 versus 2 fight between 8 monsters. Talia, who is actually Sophia, frustratingly wonders why they didn't send them one after another. She contacts Akashic Tower and says their fight is going to be more difficult now since Citri, Smart A, and Gark have joined the hunters. Still, they can't walk away from this fight since hostages from their side have been taken by the hunters. Flick doesn't think the hostages will give them away, but Sophia says Citri will find their headquarters sooner or later, so they'll draw them in for now and use their trump cards, the Malaise Eaters, to overpower them. As Gark sits down, Citri reveals that she's figured out the location of the enemy. They ask the Akashic Tower members if this is it, but they hurriedly decline and tell Sophia to come out and stop them. Citri says Sophia is her nemesis, and if they don't apprehend her and the leader Noctis, this kind of research will never end. Meanwhile, as Krai, Liz, and Tino are in the forest, Krai remarks that he didn't charge any of his relics and doesn't have enough safety rings either. As the hunters are walking, Jean wishes he had recognized Krai's greatness earlier, since he wouldn't have gotten his arm injured if he'd done that. Citri acknowledges that Krai is someone who was born to be a treasure hunter and says she's sure he's going to reach level 10 someday, shocking Jean, who says he wants to meet him even more now. Citri says he's strong, but even if he was weaker than a rabbit, it wouldn't matter. their party is suddenly attacked by lightning, so Flick lands in front of them on a Malice Eater. Sven is still alive, so Flick madly declares that he'll bury him along with the humiliation Sophia inflicted upon him. However, Citri is totally unharmed and can't believe they used an area of effect skill even though they had hostages. She quickly heals Sven, who rushes forward and takes Flick down. He attacks the Malice Eater as well, but gets overwhelmed, so Gark strikes it away. The Akashic Tower members can't believe Flick only took one Malice Eater, so a man frustratingly says the Phantoms were easily defeated. Their location was deduced, and not even Calamity Thunder was effective, so it's as if Thousand Tricks had engineered everything to turn out like this. They tell Noctis that he needs to escape, but he says they still have Akasha, so they don't need to abandon this place until they've completely lost. The hunters reach the cave, but Sven sees that they have to get through the other cult members before they reach Noctis. However, Gark says they'll enter first and the mages will back them up while they take down the Chimeras. As the hunters are fighting the cult members, Noctis releases a huge robotic monster called Akasha that they start fighting along with numerous Malice Eaters. However, Liz suddenly takes him out, so the hunters Eater downs, get reinvigorated, and get ready to defeat Akasha. The hunters barrage Akasha with attacks, but it remains unaffected. Citri doesn't think Liz will be able to destroy Akasha since she's specialized in speed, so they might to go into overtime and wait until the golem runs out of mana. Krai and Tino suddenly appear, so Liz says she really wanted to finish Akasha off before Krai showed up, but he's really tough. Akasha starts rushing towards Krai, so Tino and the others hurriedly tell him to move out of its path, but Krai doesn't budge. When Akasha attacks, it's unexpectedly thrown back into the walls and is shut down, shocking everyone. Later, Krai asks Citri if he can help her with the Akashic Tower and Sophia, so she thanks him, but says she'll try to settle the score herself first. Noctis warily says he just can't keep up with what Thousand Tricks is thinking and says they'll leave Zabrudia at once. Back at the capital, Gark annoyingly asks Krai if he's still saying he didn't know about all this even though he set things into motion, and an official tells Krai his penchant for secrecy is going too far. He acknowledges that Kray's network runs deep, but insists that this matter is far beyond his 1,000 trials. The cult members take Talia to Noctis and ask her to stop pretending now, but she hurriedly tells them she's Talia. Confused, the cult members are shocked to see that the Malice Eaters are aggressive towards Talia. Sophia suddenly walks up to them and reveals that she was never Talia before taking off her disguise and revealing herself as Citri. She reveals that she was wearing a disguise and gave herself a fake name all along, so Talia isn't related to any of this. However, the jig is up. Krai letting them go was his warning to her. She says Krai sees through everything, but he's kind. He set the stage while she'd gone by sending high-level hunters to give her a chance to test out the fruits of her research. However, when he arrived in person, he made it jump back by itself, since if the battle had continued, it would have led to more damage and casualties. All the results of the Akashic Tower's research will now be confiscated and they are apprehended as criminals. Citri apologizes to Talia for not telling her she was mimicking her appearance and pets the Malice Eater, calming it down. Noctis hurriedly tries to escape, but Citri's chimera named Killiam easily stops him. Later, Citri asks Krai if she can get the Akasha Golem and the Malice Eaters now that the members and Noctis have been arrested, so Krai agrees. Krai asks what happened to her nemesis, so Citri smilingly says Sophie's gone far away and will never appear here again. As Krai and Citri are sitting in a meeting with the association, Krai says they want Akasha and the Malice Eaters. They aren't able to get the Akasha, but they do get the Malice Eaters, so Citri leaves to take care of the handover. Meanwhile, Gark tells Krai that Crashing Lightning Aka Arnold Hale is visiting the capital and asks Krai to not get into any trouble with him. After Gark leaves, Krai notices a poster on the wall and realizes the annual relic option is happening soon. He remarks that he wants to go, but he's broke and can't ask Citri for money either, since he doesn't even remember if he's returned the money he borrowed from her last time. Chloe Welter, Gark's niece, greets him and asks if something's happened, so Krai remembers hearing about Arnold Hale. Citri returns with a briefcase, so Krai gets up to leave and says goodbye to Chloe. Later, the small Malice Eater, Drink, happily snuggles with Krai, which cracks some of his rings, so he hurriedly remarks that he needs to charge his mana unless he wants to get snuggled to death. Citri gives Krai a relic that can store a spell as a gift, so he cheerily thanks her. As Citri is giving Krai a message, he tells her he wants to charge his relics, but he's reluctant to ask any mage other than Lucia, so Citri says she's got a good idea. Citri summons some hunters and reveals that Krai suggested that they should learn a special mage technique which could help them get as powerful as Lucia. Lapis and Kriz, members of Starlight, agree, but Kriz annoyingly says it's hard to believe that Krai is Lucia's brother when he doesn't respectfully greet Lapis. Krai remarks that Starlight is a party composed of demi, humans named noble spirits who causally look down on all humans who are not great mages. Marietta decides to try learning the technique too, so Citri has her charge some relics. However, Marietta falls unconscious after a while, so Citri says you reach the state of mana depletion if you overuse your mana. They can't normally increase their mana capacity now, but one's mana capacity also increases by a few percent when they're depleted, so this requires you to abuse your mind to its absolute limit. Lapis doesn't believe this will actually work, so Citri feeds Marietta some drops of a fluid, so she hurriedly gets up and then falls unconscious again. Citri shows them that Marietta's mana capacity has indeed increased. Citri says she's heard Starlight wants to recruit Lucia, but tells Lapis she's just resting on her laurels for being a race gifted with magic talent, so that attitude might be the reason Lucia isn't impressed. Lapis says they'll not stand by Idley and let humiliate them any further. Chris declares that she'll charge those relics up right away, and other hunters step up as well and get to work. Meanwhile, Arc Brave is talking to a noble who can't believe there's a hunter that could rival him as they're discussing thousand tricks. As Liz is taking a bath, Citri suggests to Tino that she could join her, but Tino embarrassingly hurries away to give Liz a towel. When Liz comes out, she asks Krai what he's here for, so he was thinking they could celebrate her and Citri coming back home safely. Liz happily says that's nice of him, but Citri stops her from getting close to him. As they're sitting in a bar, Liz and Citri get really drunk, and Citri tells Krai she'll have him pay back the money using his body, but Liz quickly stops her, even though it would be a great deal for Krai. They hear a guy saying Arnold Hale's party is here, and Krai feels like he's heard that name before but decides to not think about it. Liz sees Arnold's party bullying some civilians and smashes her mug on Arnold's head. Next, she takes down the other members of his party and asks if he's really level 7. Seeing this, the other people at the bar start happily celebrating, so Krai apologizes to a knocked out Arnold on Liz's behalf and they leave. 3 years ago, Chloe gave the first steps entrance exam, but she lost to Luke from the Grieving Souls and failed the exam, so she gave up on trying to become her eye on the hunter and keeps activities as a receptionist of the Explorers Association. Meanwhile, Eva tells Krai it's a bit of problem that they've immediately gotten into trouble with Arnold Hall. The Falling Fog party members go to the association and tell Chloe they want to know the name of the girl who humiliated them, so Gark says her name is Liz Smart. He says he told her Guardian 1,000 tricks to keep her in check, but he must not have done so. Arnold and the other men are shocked to learn that Krai is level 8, and Gark adds that Krai asked them to bring back some Thunder Dragon meat since it tastes really well with teriyaki sauce. Eva is shocked to learn that Krai has a 10-digit debt from Citri and asks what alternatives they have. Krai says he can either put her in prison, which he obviously won't do, or he can get married to her. Eva says he should eventually be able to pay the debt back using his payment from the Grievers. However, she asks why he doesn't just go into a vault to be able to pay back faster, so Krai inwardly wonders if she wants him to die. Arnold and the other party members try asking other hunters about Krai, but they only hear some vague information, so Arnold wonders if it's possible that Krai doesn't have powers on his skill level. He believes Krai must have become a level 8 thanks to his overall party's strength, not his, and says he might not be weak, but he's no match for him, someone who reached level 7 on his own merit. Tino asks Krai if she needs anything for him, but realizes she got fooled again. She asks how much money he needs and says she also needs some for restocking her items and maintain her equipment, so there's a limit to what she can do. Krai assures her he doesn't intend to borrow money from her since it's an upper 10-digit debt after all. He tells her it's fine, and if it comes down to him, he'll just get married to Citri, it'll be even. As Krai and Tino are walking, she suggests that they could go to vaults, hunt relics, and sell them for a good price. As they're walking, they suddenly run into Falling Fog, but Krai says he doesn't want to fight since he and Tino are on a date, but he'll give them an apology if they want one. However, Tino keeps provoking the men, so Krai says they should do it right. Falling Fog is surprised to see that he's drawing attention to them from the people walking by. Arnold says Krai is a slippery guy like the rumors said, but he knows his combat power doesn't correspond to his level. He's just a fool who climbed the ranks with the help of his friends. Tino angrily says she can't just stand by Edley while they insult Krai. She asks Krai if she can fight Arnold, so he cheerily agrees. Krai is surprised that no prominent hunter has passed by here. Arnold annoyingly slams Tino into the ground and tells Krai he's had enough of him. He makes a lower rank fight for him, and then tell her she almost has him to add insult to injury. Krai decides to not kill him today, so he uses gravity magic to take down the entire party and tells Arnold he'll have to work his way up the clan if he wants to fight him. Tino later apologizes, but Krai says there's nothing to be sorry about since he's the one who misread the situation. She asks him to give her a chance to redeem herself and asks where she can find a treasure vault with a valuable relic, promising to bring in enough to clear his 10-digit debt. Chloe apologizes to Krai for bothering him, but says verifying the truth is her job. Chloe points out that they felt like Krai they weren't even worth remembering, so Krai asks her to tell Arnold and his friends that he'll never forget about them. He tells her his impression of Arnold, but as he's leaving, Chloe reveals that she was defeated by Luke here 3 years ago, but she was told she had promised, so she asks what she was lacking. Krai says he doesn't have to answer that since she's already figured it out herself, and Tun tells her he's sure he'd pass if she tried again today. However, she doesn't have any intention of joining them and feels fulfilled working for the association, so she cherished the life she has now since there are a ton of hunters who look forward to seeing her. As he's walking, Krai remembers that the only reason she failed was because she was under the age limit, but if he were to take her now, Gark would beat the crap out of him. Chloe remarks that Krai didn't give her a straight answer and guesses that this is a trial too, but for now, she happily continues working at the association. Chloe tells Arnold what Krai said about him, which pisses him off even more. He sends a member to the three main parties in Krai's clan to challenge to a duel, but they all asked if he was actually serious. Sven offered to buy him a drink. Starlight refused to fight and Ark told him he shouldn't take Krai's words at face value. Krai and Tino go to an appraiser to get a relic appraised, but the man says it's probably something from a highly advanced civilization and will take time since he's currently busy with the auction. Krai agrees but decides to take a look at the relics in the back that are going to be present at the auction. He finds a mask similar to the one he had before that could allow him to change his appearance and remarks that the last one he had was broken by Liz. Outside, Krai remarks that this relic could be used for criminal purposes if it fell into the wrong hands. As he and Tino are walking, they run into Claire from the house of Earl of Gladys, who starts insulting Krai but goes silent when he says he prefers to keep his mouth shut. Later, Krai tries asking the hunters he knows for a loan since he wants to get the mask, but they decline since they know about his addiction to relics. Because of this, Krai has to ask Saitri for a favor, to bargain with the relic's owner, and they're surprised to see that Arnold is the owner. He initially declines their offers but realizes this might be a scheme, so he's about to give it to Krai for cheap, but other hunters suddenly start bidding more money for it, and even Claire says she wants it. Later, Krai tries negotiating with Duzzy Claire, but she thinks he's mocking Ark Brave and convinces her father to get a loan for his auction, so he tells her to make sure she wins. Citri tells Krai their total budget came out to 950 million Jill, and they have a 70% chance of winning. They arrive at the auction and meet Tino, who's sad they didn't take her with them. Krai Hurley says he's drawing a lot of attention, so it's actually better for her that she didn't come with them. He asks if she'll bid for him, so she happily agrees. As the auction begins, Krai is overwhelmed by how many good relics are being sold off and has to hold himself back from betting on them. He's surprised to see the Akasha being sold and realizes Citri wants it, but she tells him it's fine since they need to get the mask for him. However, Krai stands up and starts betting on the Akasha for her. They go up to 500 million, so Citri tries to stop him since they won't have enough for the mask at this rate, but Krai assures her it's fine and reveals that he wanted to get the Akasha for her all along. However, they go past their limit of 950 million and don't have enough money, so Krai takes out a chick from his pocket and tells Citri to use this money instead. He remarks that it should be fine for him to use Lucia's money since she's his sister. Once they've gotten the Akasha, Krai decides to head back, and Lady Claire gets the mask, but she feels like she's lost since Krai had already left the venue. Krai meets Ark and tells him to go get the mask from Lady Claire. He tells him to get there quickly and suggests not taking a person, so Ark agrees even though his party's unsure. In Lady Claire's mansion, she frustratingly remarks that she got this mask for Ark, so the mask slowly rises up and tells Claire to put it on if she wants power, seeing which Claire realizes Krai was telling the truth when he said this mask was dangerous. When Ark and his party reach the mansion, they suddenly hear some commotion and rush to check Claire. They're surprised to find her with the mask on her face as she slams a guard into the wall. Ark slowly approaches her and tries to talk to her. He asks for the mask, but she notices the sword and gets furious, so Ark realizes Krai was right when he told her not to take a weapon. Later, Ark, his party, and Claire arrive at Krai's mansion, and she apologizes to Krai for being rude to him. Krai tries to put the mask on but realizes it's not an appearance-changing mask, and it doesn't react to him. They start celebrating, but Krai goes to his balcony and realizes the mask worked on Claire but didn't on him, so he wearily remarks that he really just wants to retire because of how pathetically weak he is.